I'm going to be talking about how I make graphic novels and a little introduction about me, what sort of books I do. And then I'm going to do a demonstration of developing a character from scratch and building a world. And hopefully we have time to pull out a story from those characters to do a short comic. And then I will share with you how to make your own mini comic, like a little tiny baby book size. Because let's face it, a whole graphic novel takes a long time. So personally, I've also been enjoying working in a shorter format during pandemic times because our attention span is only so big. I'm going to do a screen share for just the introduction part, and then I'm going to go back to me and doing drawing on my easel. So when talking about my work, of course, I'm going to start with who is Laura Lee? And of course, let's see. Well, here's me as a kid. As you can see, a super cool kid. I was always drawing, and I was rather a shy introvert. But with my friends, I would be a lot more animated, a lot more weird, and making a lot of jokes. And I would draw a lot of art for my friends to sort of both to, to practice my skills and to sort of to build confidence, but also because for me, I would sort of be anxious in social settings. So art was a way for me to feel comfortable and to help me connect with other people. I always love to share my civics folder from 8th grade, and there's me in middle school, because my civics folder was my favorite work of art in 8th grade. And it's covered with just tons of little doodles and text. And Bob Ross is a featured character in there. He's the one with the big giant fro. And what I didn't realize at the time is that this is visual storytelling. Whenever you combine words and pictures together is visual storytelling. Of course, I didn't think it was storytelling. I was just having fun and joking around. And as you can see, I learned how to draw people from copying Garfield. You can see the cat there with the Swatch Watch photo. So the way I drew cartoons, they were sort of had the big giant Garfield eyes and no necks. It was a little limiting. But in high school, I started to get more into working in a sketchbook and drawing. I got a little better with the characters looking a little more realistic now with practice. But I was interested in drawing about my emotions in particular, because I'm really sensitive. So things really overwhelm me easily. And sometimes I would have an emotional reaction to something. I couldn't even tell what emotion it was. And so I felt a little I didn't know how to drive the machine of me. So I used art as a way to help me figure out, okay, well, how can we draw about this feeling? And at first it was to, so I wouldn't have to talk to humans about my problems. But it actually meant that the more I drew about my emotions, it was easier for me to then talk to other people, because I could sort of unlock a little bit of what was going on by drawing about it. So I kept working in a sketchbook for years. And so this is me probably my, maybe 21 or 22 working in my sketchbook. And at this point, I started adding words into my drawings. So I would squeeze them on the side, really teeny handwriting, don't really read this because it's personal. And this is something that I did as art therapy on myself for a bunch of years. And I didn't show it to people for a while. Because at the time I was an art teacher. Actually, I was a middle school art teacher over in Louisa County. And so I was focused more on my students. Oops, hey, go back, play. This is a little time lapse of flipping through 4 years of these sketchbooks. Because I did a very dedicated practice where I had to fill out 7 pages every 2 weeks, because I wanted to treat it like exercise. Because I thought if I just get in the habit of making stuff every week, then it'll get better, which it does. And I challenged myself to do every page different. So some of them are collage, some are about a book I just read, some are about a dream or an idea for a mural, or just, playing around with finger paint or drawing the cat. And some of the pages aren't even drawings. Some of them have just writing on it. So I treated my sketchbook as sort of like a scrapbook meets an idea log meets a pensive from Harry Potter, and just sort of a way to dump out all the random stuff in my head and document it somehow whatever way it came out was okay. And I think this was really liberating because you can take a risk on the page of a sketchbook, and if it fails, it is no big deal. So it was a really safe space for me to explore and try new things. And this is when I started using me more as like a character. And so I was really shy at first about showing it to people because some of the art wasn't the best. And I was like, this is a lot of drawings about me. Am I just really self-involved? What's going on? But once I did start to share these drawings with people, then I found that they made it about them. They say, oh, this drawing here is like how I felt last week. I was like, really? But when I drew, it was about something else. And so once I saw that the art had potential for other people to make it about them, that's when I thought, okay, we're gonna like be serious about this. So I started doing art shows where I would just put all my drawings up on a wall, and I started to self-publish little baby versions of my sketchbooks, like really small, which I still advise if you are starting out as an artist to share your work small, because it's a really good way to get feedback from other people about what makes you special. And they say, oh, you're really good at drawing emotions. I was like, well, can't everybody draw emotions? What's so special about that? Because oftentimes the thing that's special about you is something that to you doesn't seem very cool or interesting. Maybe it's actually annoying. That's how I felt about my thing with emotions. But I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna go see I'm gonna try to figure out where I fit in the art world. And so I moved to New York, where I instantly discovered that the galleries were not into me. And I wasn't like an illustrator. I don't know, I didn't really fit in anywhere. But thankfully, in New York is where I discovered graphic novels. And this whole new world that I didn't know about like was opened up before my eyes. And I thought, oh, what if all these drawings I've been doing are actually scenes from a story? So then I asked myself, what's the story? So the first book I did, page by page, is very much inspired by my backstory working in those sketchbooks and how it helped me learn how to come out of my shell. And I mashed it up when I moved to New York because I didn't know anybody, and I really turned to my art to help me get through it. So I drew her story, how I felt as an introvert, where I'm one person in reality and then another person in my head. So it's actually a really therapeutic way to draw about how I experienced the world that I had never seen before. And somehow I actually sold it to a publisher, and I'm still kind of surprised about that. Because I had read maybe 5 graphic novels when I wrote Page, because I wanted to just do it in a way that, I don't know, in my own style, because I was really scared of like copying people, because I wanted to be original. Artists, we all want to be like super original. And so this book, it was pretty unique. With Will and Wit, I wanted to do something a little bit more traditional, where I used more like the traditional panels on a page instead of going into my character's world. So for this story, I had Will's shadows following her through her story. So they're like the magical realism element, and they represent like her fears and what she's not dealing with. So this book is a little more of an ensemble story than page by page. They each are my different neuroses. So Paige is like my a bit of my anxious side, who's like figuring out identity and building confidence, versus Will is more my workaholic side. Like, I'm going to stay busy so I don't actually have to be alone with my thoughts and make a joke about everything. And of course, Will and Wit is the musical, which Tim mentioned at the beginning, which we've done a virtual version of now. So now it's a virtual graphic novel musical, which just really blows my mind. Because like our Ava was zooming in from the Philippines. What? I know, possibilities. Oh, double screen. Okay, enough of musical. And then the latest book is Mona Star, The Dark Matter, Mona Star. And this is one that explores my depressive side. I know I could talk about the musical all day, but if you're curious, I can like gab more at the end. So this book came out with the first week of pandemic, which was a little ironic, a book about depression, everything being canceled, and it was kind of depressing. It was, a case of life imitating art, imitating life. But this book, I wrote a script not thinking about how I would draw it. I thought, okay, we're just going to write the most personal story we can possibly think of. We're going to write about all the stuff that we're not really public about. And it ended up being, I don't know, like really helpful for me to give form to how I personify my depression, because I call it the matter. Because when I was young, I get really frustrated and like upset. And my parents be like, what's the matter? I'd be like, I don't know what's the matter. Because to me, the worst thing is when you can't put your finger on like what's going on inside of yourself. It's like this invisible force. So I use this jet black ink to represent the matter. And then I use super gray tones for the rest of the book, and spot yellow to represent ... to represent like the genius, the spirit, you know, the little sparkly magical part of life that keeps you going. And yeah, so in her story, thankfully, it's more about healing. So how to deal with your matter and how to find ways to learn how to manage your emotions, which is something I've had to do a lot as a highly sensitive person. So I just took a lot of stuff based on my experiences and filtered it through a 16-year-old alter ego. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my books. Now I'm going to run through the process. So I got lots of pictures of behind the scenes of Mona to share. So for making a graphic novel or any comic, you're using both words and pictures. So it can be a little hard to figure out how to get started. Because for me, like in my head, I think in pictures, but it's sort of like a jumble of pictures. And it's kind of hard to pull the words out of it or to put it in order. It's like when you have a dream and you try to express that dream to somebody and you try to lay it out in order and it sort of falls apart. So I'm going to break it down with how I do it, which is I like to think of it as you swing between words and pictures. So I start at pictures and then swing to words and then go back to pictures and then back to words. It's like the chicken and the egg. Wait, next one. Here we go. So the basic steps, half of them are development and then half of them are actually drawing out your book. So we joke in comics that you really have to be a glutton for punishment to do graphic novels because it takes twice as long as a regular book. Because first you got to write the thing and then you got to draw the whole thing out. I always say that up front because a lot of people think like you just start drawing and that's how it works. So sorry to report that there's actually planning involved. So I start off by drawing my character to get to know them and develop who they are and let them tell me the story, which is the Charles Schulz approach. And then writing out the script and sketching out your layouts of your pages. So all of that takes, oh gosh, I mean, it takes like a year or two in bits and pieces to do all that development. And then there's the actual drawing part, which is the fun part. So penciling, inking, and shading, and lettering. So I know it looks like a lot, which is why we'll be doing little tiny comics. So I always start off by just getting to know my characters. So this is some of the early sketches of Mona, trying to figure out how am I going to draw this matter idea. And then here's a couple other development pieces. I always do a sample scene with my characters before I draw out the book, just to sort of get to know how to draw them and hang out with them. So this isn't even like a scene in the book. Now also this is an early version of the cat just knocked over something. An early version of sort of like a mood board where I'm collecting the ingredients of my story, even though I went in a different direction. There's still lots of, like sample sketches and figuring out how you're going to draw your characters. So then the writing, this is my least favorite part because words sort of are like Teflon in my head. They like slide off. So working with big blocks of text can be a challenge. So I'll start by writing what's on the back of my book. Like, of course.
Hey, Laura Lee.
Yeah.
Can you try screen sharing one more time for us? We're still on the how to make, there it came through. We were on the how to make graphic novels page still.
Oh.
I think it just updated. I don't think we saw the last 2 slides or so. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Thanks for letting me know. Oh yeah. So character development of Mona. Can you see that?
We can. Looks great.
Awesome. Yeah, some original sketches and more development. Yeah, so with writing, I'll start by writing like what's on the back of the book for the inside of the flap, like this for Will and Wit. So I'll start off by like, okay, how can I boil down my idea into like a few paragraphs? And then I'll do an outline, like, and then I'll cut the outline in half at some point. And then I'll use cork boards to help me with my script. So this is an early cork board where I took all those drawings that I'd made over the years of my emotions that I talked about, and I pulled out ones that I felt like were part of Mona's story and actually used them as the basis for building her plot, almost like stringing beads on a necklace. This is what the boards look like a little later when I sort of fleshed out, as my agent would say, what really happens. So I always start with the emotional story arc and then figure out the actual plot. And then so my script sort of looks like this, where I just write, I write it for myself, so I don't have to be as detailed as if you're writing a script for someone else. So just describing the picture and what dialogue or narration, and then there's like the final page. Then thumbnailing is next. So often my script is where I start to figure out, how am I going to share this scene? How am I going to break it down? What do I have to show versus what do I not have to show? And my thumbnails, they're pretty loose. It's more about figuring out where the faces are going to go and the speech bubbles. And I try to boil down each page to as few panels as possible, because I don't like when comics get too claustrophobic. I mean, if that's what your character's going through, then cool. And I also like to make sure I have a variety of camera angles. So this is an example, little handout of different, it's more of a filmmaking term, but we use it in comics also, where we have our thumbnails instead of storyboards. But you just try to make sure to have a variety of camera angles, so it's not like the same image over and over and over, just because that's a little boring. And then it's drawing time. So there's my cat at my drawing board, because every cartoonist has a cat. And here's a quick little time lapse showing a page from start to finish. So first is lining the page to draw my panels. I'll blow up my thumbnail sketches to lay out the basic layout of the page. And penciling, I use non-photo blue pencils to sketch, and so they're pretty invisible. So yeah, this part of the video won't make sense. But once I have it defined, then I'll go in with a light blue erasable colored pencil to like define it. This character is based on my brother, and I didn't tell him. And I've never seen him make that face in real life. So there I was really using my imagination. And inking is my favorite part, because I've already put down the pencil lines, and then I can just have fun and like just taking deep breaths and drawing really long, loose lines. And then I have like a coloring book I get to fill in. So this is the part of the process that is the most fun, where I can like listen to podcasts and things. And for this, I used a water-soluble graphite instead of India ink for my washes. And I'm so obsessed with it. And I'll mention more about materials here in a minute. And then I use a gouache for my little touch-ups. Okay, next page, next one. Okay, so, whoops. So with drawing, there is, of course, the penciling. So here's a little better photo of a penciling example. And yeah, that little GIF is fun because it shows how the first time I drew her head, it was the complete wrong angle. Because a lot of times when every time I pencil, the character moves a little bit. So it takes me a few times to actually get them right. And then here's another look at the inking, which is so much fun. And then these are like the materials that I use. So the gouache and the watercolor graphite and some micron pens. I use masking fluid for some spacey special effects in Mona, which is why you see that little GIF there on the side. And then speech bubbles are the last thing. So those I draw separately and then scan and put them over top. And I type my lettering using you can make a font of your handwriting online for free, actually. So you can then just type it in. So yeah, this is the part that I like doing digitally, just because it gives you a lot of flexibility. Because if a panel or a page works without the text, then leave it out. Because ideally you want the pictures to tell the story for you. And then we're done. And then it's a book, baby. Yeah. Okay. Now I've been talking too much. I want to get to demo time. So we'll also end question time. So I'm going to stop screen share. Okay. So before I get into drawing mode, I'm curious if anybody has any questions about comics or creative life. Yeah, you can put it in the chat. I guess. Okay, I don't see anything yet. I feel like the top question, I guess the top questions I often get are, what do you do when you don't have inspiration? That's a big one. Like if you have like a creative block. So whenever that happens, I find it's good to, it means you're sort of burning out. So it's good to switch things up and also to get back in your body. So oftentimes that's when I will like, okay, we're going to go out for a hike and do more like physical activity. Because when your brain is relaxed, that's when you can actually like receive ideas. And also switching it up. So like after I finish a book, like I'm not drawing comics after that. I'm taking a break and I'm doing like, you know, I did a bunch of like sewing projects and I've gotten really into dance. And right now I'm making a giant paper mache head because it's nice to like use my hands to build something. So if you feel uninspired and like the thing you're trying to do, switch gears to something else so your brain can like rest and relax a little bit. And the inspiration, it'll come. So yeah, it's like if you stare too long at something, then you can't see it anymore. And anyone, have I taken drawing lessons? I took an art class. I took a private art class like 8th grade to 10th grade because I couldn't take art in school because I played violin. So I was an orchestra, or dorchestra as we called it. I remember she made me do like basically black and white still life. It was very drawing on the right side of the brain. Looking back, she used a lot of those exercises. So that class helped me learn how to see, like to draw realistically a lot better. And I did take like art classes in college, but I've never taken like a illustration class or a comics class. I think I took 2 drawing classes. But when it comes to cartooning, like that, that's more self-taught. And so I joined a studio with other cartoonists when I first got the gig to do the first book and sort of asked them like, so why do you guys use blue pencils? And how about this? And, you know, so if you want to learn something, yeah, being around people who are doing it and who are better than you, it's really humbling, but that's really a great way to learn. And I think other questions, I think there was one before that. How many books have you written and what are the titles? I think we went through, you know, I have 4 books with Abrams and a pile of books that have not gone anywhere. And let's see, do you stick with the schedule to write a book or just write and draw when you're inspired? That's a good question. I have a very like, not rigid schedule, but I have a very specific rhythm for my creative practice because I find that it's about having a rhythm with you and your genius, because you are not a genius, you have a genius. And when you're creative in the studio, that's when like your genius is there with you. And they're like the connector between you and wherever the ideas come from, which that's personal and up to you where you think they come from. So for me, I find that to have healthy boundaries with my genius, so he doesn't like keep me up at night. I generally like on weekdays from like 10 to 4 is like my flow state time. And I've developed like, because over the years, at one point I was drawing like noon to midnight when I was working on Will and Wit, and that was terrible. So I learned that after 6 hours, my art, it's terrible. So don't work more than 6 hours. And having days off actually makes the art better too. So I find it's figuring out like where in your daily life and your weekly schedule, like what's a good rhythm for you to sort of set up studio hours. So when I was a teacher, my studio hours were Tuesday nights and like maybe every other Thursday night. and then a big block of time on like Sunday afternoon, evening. So that was like, you know, sort of like turning a faucet on and off. So really it's just having like a regular sort of rhythm of like, okay, this is when we're going to get in that flow state time. And, you know, it takes a lot of practice to sort of get used to that, like going into that mindset and coming back and going into it and coming back. But yeah, so it takes time and some experimentation. But yes, it is like a job, because as they say, you know, you have to like be at your desk to receive the ideas. And I also invented a fictional assistant, and they help, and their name is Coco. They look like a little lemur in a top hat in my head. And so once a week, I actually plan the next week. So I schedule time to plan. And so I sort of wear my Coco hat and I, you know, set everything up for myself. So even before I go in the studio, Coco sets up all my supplies. And it just helps to sort of personify the more administrative side of the artist's life, because there's the talent side and then there's like the logistic side. And sometimes it can be confusing. So I use my imagination to help me sort of, play to my strengths. And then staying motivated. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I feel like the motivation question, that's when community and partners are really important, because I do lose motivation. Like when the Mona book tour was canceled, oh my gosh, I was so unmotivated to do a book ever again. It just broke my heart in a million pieces. But that's when you have people that you've included on your journey, and they're also emotionally invested in your work. And there's like, oh, hey, I'm excited for your next book. Like, you are, because I've sort of given up. So I find that that's why you include people in your process and share your dreams with other people and share your projects with the people who really care about you. Because when you don't have motivation, then then we inspire each other. And sometimes the ancestors, like I have a picture of like my grandma in my studio, and I actually have a picture of a reader that I met named Karen, who inspired me, because I thought, I can't let Karen down. So if you're not a good enough excuse to be creative in the studio, figure out who is worth it and put pictures of them in your studio. And they're sort of like, get back to work. And yes, there are tattoos in my ears. I got them when I was I needed some reminders to listen to people and include them and not be such an island, actually. So that ties in with the whole community topic. And is shading important? Oh, shading I love, because that's where the world, you get to render it and make it 3-dimensional. So, and also you can really influence the mood of the scene and give it emotional sort of oomph with how you do the shading. And yeah, it's very sculptural. So that's the part to me where I try to just see where the art, how it wants to take me, and when to take things really dark and when to keep it really simple and airy. And yeah, so shading is so much fun. Yeah, but don't overdo it, because sometimes I can get carried away. Those are some great questions. Okay. Looking at the time, I feel like I need to get into drawing mode, because we're already over halfway done with our panel. Okay, so I'm going to shift over here. Yeah, I used to not draw when I did workshops. Okay, plant out of the way. But then I realized that, yeah, I can't talk about making a comic without actually then modeling it, because really students want to see you throw yourself off a cliff in front of them and then build your wings on the way down. It's like a magic trick. So as far as a character for us to use as an example, I don't want it to be something that is, I don't want it to be your character, because I want you to save that for you. And I don't want it to be a character that already exists and has like a copyright, on it. Because part of the reason we tell our own stories is so we can create things that we've never seen before. So I'll share a few little student examples just to give you an idea. One of my favorite little mini comics by students is a talking cube. And it's about like different sides of this cube, and one of them like steals the Nutella and the others cry, and then that's it. So it's just a cube. Or maybe your character is, this is a really cute one, dead weight, about a little bird who's like, oh, I'm too fat to fly, so I'm gonna like work out. But then he gets like such like muscle mass that he's like, oh no, like my wings can't support all these muscles. I do like the tragic stories. So it could be a shape, it could be an animal, it could be a flower. This one is in a horizontal format, and it's a great plot twist because this flower basically gets like pushed off this shelf, and they're like, oh yay. I guess I don't know why these flowers are bullying this other flower, but then it comes back. And of course, humans can also be a good character. This one here has a fairy and a magician called Two Types of Magic, where they're sort of like having a little like competition, like, oh, check out, like, whoops, like, check out my magic. She's like, well, what about mine? She's like, oh, here, I'll do a little zap and send us to like a beach somewhere. Just like, show off. And also you can choose to use the character that we make together in your comic if you don't have any ideas, because we're going to make something together. So we partnered, so it belongs to us both. So this is actually one, was a Sydney the Psychic Sidekick. She was the one that we made up in class. And so a student, oops, I can't get it to focus. Well, anyway, so you get the idea. So a character can be a human, an animal, an inanimate object. It can be a shape. It can really be anything. So does anyone have an idea of a character for me to play with? And please put it in the chat. Or if you feel like, you know, like chiming in. A rabbit with wings. Ooh. Yeah, because we don't have to figure out a story. First is just getting to know, starting with a character. I like a rabbit with wing. I like that. Because also I've never seen that before. Are there any other proposals? I'll be asking more questions too, because my writing process is sort of like a series of asking questions. I've never taken a creative writing class, so I don't know how you're supposed to do it. So I have a very intuitive approach. Okay, well, I'm going to go with rabbit with wings because I think that is already intriguing. So now my first question is I'm asking like, yeah, is this rabbit walking on all four legs or on two legs? I feel like since wings, maybe it's more like on a two leg sort of rabbit. A banana. Maybe it's a rabbit with wings and then a banana is another character. Two legs and wings for the front leg. Oh, so it's like it has wings instead of little front arms. I have a very interesting mental picture in my head. I feel like it might be limiting to have, also it might be hard for me to draw if the wings are the hands. That might be a little cumbersome just because wings are kind of big and I feel like they might be in the way. So I think I might give them just regular paws just for the sake of making it visually like a little clearer. Okay, so I'm gonna draw, let's draw this little rabbit. Oh my gosh, this is gonna reveal that I don't know how to draw rabbits. Okay, so start with what I know. That's my mantra in the studio, is start with what you know. I know rabbits have ears. So I'm gonna draw. See, now I'm like, do they go straight back? I'll do like the floppy forward ears. I feel like that's cute. Or maybe one of each. Like one floppy. I feel like they got the little nose. And I feel like cute. It's like cute little. Oh goodness, now I'm getting to the body. Oh, no. Okay, wait, little mouth. So I guess maybe it'll be like sort of here, and then the wings. Ooh, I didn't leave quite enough room for wings. And I feel like I'm gonna draw the rabbit holding something, but I feel like we'll figure it out. So I'm gonna leave the for something, a little paw. I feel like they got big feet. They're kind of big feet. And little fluffy tail. Little pudgy belly. Maybe, do they got a little fluffy belly? Maybe fluffy belly? I don't know. Now some wings. Ooh, I feel like maybe like little wings. We'll do medium size. And the other one, which is sort of like behind. And okay. There, it's kind of a bunny. It's kind of a morphy bunny. Okay. And the next question I will ask my character, yay. Well, there's a few questions. We'll need to figure out a name for this character, something that sounds rabbit bunny like. But the bigger question is, what does this character want? Because that's the hardest question for us as humans to answer. And that's why it's the biggest thing to figure out with your character, because that's the big driving force in anybody's story is what you're passionate about, or what dream do you have? Like, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Like, what does this flying bunny rabbit want? And that's the emotional hook of your story. That's what makes someone like actually keep reading your book. Yes, he wants a snack. Like oftentimes, I feel like the number one driving force of the character is that they want friendship. They want like connection. They want love. Like that's, I feel like the most like number one driving force of the character, but it can be also, yeah, he just wants a snack. Or wants to feel like that he or she fits in. I know we need to figure out a name for this rabbit. If they're a boy or girl or non-binary. Oh gosh, we're getting punny. It's Friday. Okay, maybe they want a spa day. Yeah, because once you figure out what they want, then it's easy to build a little ecosystem around them. Wants a big bowl of pellets. I feel like just because it's Friday, I feel like maybe the sillier direction, I feel like the wanting to fit in is like, I mean, that's a really good one too, because this bunny has wings, so maybe that's why they don't fit in. We have a name idea. Rowan the rabbit. Ooh, has like R and W, like the wing. That is a good name, like Rowan the rabbit. I like that. Okay, I'm thinking maybe like a bowl of like a snack at spa day. I'm gonna start with Rowan. Okay, so we got Rowan the flying rabbit. Okay, I'm still not quite as sure as of the motivation, but maybe if we figure out the other character, this will help reveal. Because normally your character needs somebody else to interact with. Because if it's just them by themselves in an empty landscape, it's kind of boring. So oftentimes the other character, sort of to build our ecosystem, it's often like a friend or a sidekick or a helper. It could be like a nemesis if there's, like a bad guy in the story, but normally we sort of start off with who's like their helper. Because it's always also more interesting when your character is not just like, doing everything by themselves, because we need help. So for another character. I mean, we could definitely do like another rabbit, or we could do, oh, what was that earlier idea with the banana? It might be, unless they want a banana as their snack. But yeah, does anyone have an idea for what the other character should be? I said for wings because I'm trying to make a rabbit with wings. Oh, I see. So this was research. Okay, well, I'm sure that you're going to do a better job at drawing a rabbit with wings than I did. Another rabbit, maybe a rabbit without wings. You know, because that, unless this is a world where all rabbits have wings, and that's just because you can decide that, because if you're building a world, you can decide like this is a world where all rabbits have wings, because of why wouldn't they? So, okay, well, I'm gonna do another rabbit with wings because, oh, with fairy wing. Oh, that's a good idea. Almost like the two types of magic where there's like, they're a play off the same motif, but there's different versions. Oh yeah, more like fairy butterfly wing. Okay, oh, cute. Okay, so I'm gonna draw, I guess, like, I could draw them holding hands. Okay, I'll draw little bunny. Like, where should I fit in the space? Maybe I should lay down. I'll just draw like wavy. Wow. Like, hey, happy. Whoops. And so we have other rabbit. And I don't know if it's because of the fairy wings, but I feel like maybe this is more of a, oh, you give eyelashes. It's like, oh, heteronormative, but it is a helpful visual cue. So I'm drawing like a sweet, happy friend. So, and maybe she has a snack. Do it again. Wait. Oh, I started to draw. Well, I guess. They're almost like dragon wings. I gotta give, I don't want to look like dragon wings though, so I'm gonna get this closer. We'll draw some little sparkles. Yeah, if you think that something in your cartoon isn't clear, then that's when you just bring in lots of little visual cues to sort of, or just label it. Okay, so I'm gonna draw, she's just like, oh, I'm just happy about something. I'm gonna run out of room. She's got a little tail there. Okay, she's got really big feet. Which is fine. Some rabbits just have big feet. Okay, so we have Rowan and the friend. Oh, thank you for the, oh yeah, Dragon Bunny. And maybe she's Gwen, because yeah, there's the other name. So we got Gwen or Gwenny. Or Gwen. With the flying rabbits. Okay, now next question is, where are they? Where is the setting for these characters and their story to take place? And I'm still trying to figure out the motivation that they want, like the food, maybe a misty canyon or forest. I feel like they'd fit in a forest, maybe like in the mountains. Yeah, like a misty forest. So I'll draw some like, oh, it's mist. There, it's missed. And I'm gonna draw some, like, try to hint at some like grass. Maybe there's some flowers. Okay, and then I didn't leave myself a lot of room to draw the background behind them, but I guess I'll just do like a mountain. I know that's kind of boring, but I don't have a lot of space. I'll draw a little tree line, like a little trees behind them. It's very simple. Okay, so we have, and oftentimes when you have characters that are similar, it's good to just make sure that they're visually look different. And so I feel like the wings do that pretty well, because if they looked exactly the same, they need to figure out how to make them look visually different so your reader doesn't get confused. But I feel like they're pretty good. Like maybe she has some little like sparkles in her fur. I don't know. She has a little bling. Okay, but I still am not sure what they want. Maybe they're up on a hill and that's why there's a tree line. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this is what I call sort of doing like a mood board for your story, where you're just collecting the ingredients you want to have in your story. And you don't have to figure out the plot line yet, but normally just by drawing my characters together and figuring out where they are and what their names are, then my imagination already starts to write stories. So like the two of these, I'm like, well, they have these wings, so obviously they can fly. So that means they have the potential for mobility, which is interesting. So they could go on a quest. Yes. Or to the beach. Yeah, so I feel like that the original like food idea, yeah, it's like too small world for these characters, because just seeing them, they look like they want to explore. So they want more. Oh, a mythical cloud burger. That's it. Okay, a cloud burger. Okay, where can I fit that in? I'll do a little, okay, I'm gonna do like a little thought bubble of a little cloud burger. Yeah, because maybe there's like a special restaurant that's up in the clouds and they've never been able to make it because maybe they'd like just got these wings and it's like too far. So maybe it's like, I don't know, like the epic quest for the cloud burger. Actually, I like that. Okay. So you can't really see it, but I drew a teeny tiny, you have to use your imagination. Tiny cloud burger. Because also maybe he's trying to like impress Gwen and like take her on an epic date or something. Already I'm intrigued. And oh goodness, looking at the time, I don't have time to like pull out the full story with you guys, but I feel like that the story we would write would start with sort of meeting Rowan and maybe Rowan and Gwen at the same time, sort of showing like, oh, these two were like friends and they're doing good. And then the second panel would be like, but what they're really missing, what would make life complete, is this cloud burger. Or like someone comes in and they have a cloud burger and it's like, oh, I've always wanted one, you know. So expressing like this unmet desire. So then figuring out if they actually get the cloud burger, if it's a comedy, or if they don't get the cloud burger and it's a tragedy, or if they get it, but it doesn't quite work out how they planned, then it's more of like a dark comedy. So guessing that they do get the cloud burger on more of a comedy direction, then maybe there's normally some sort of challenge that they would face on the journey. Like maybe one of their wings aren't strong enough, and so the other has to help them. Or maybe they encounter an obstacle on the way, or like a storm or something, or an angry bird or whatnot. And because you need some sort of little struggle. So when they do get the cloud burger, then there's like that emotional payoff of, yeah, they did it. And I was rooting for them. And of course, it's always especially good if there's some sort of development on the way, like they learn something or they're forced to like grow or face a fear, you know, things like that, which I don't have time to get into all of that psychology, you know, dissecting of what makes a good story. Because also in 6 panels, there's only so much you can do. So for your comic, I would think of it as just like a scene, like just like a scene from a bigger story. So it doesn't have to be like a whole movie. Oh, this one is too light for you to see. It doesn't have to be like a whole movie. It can just be like a little scene. So like this is a more serious one where a little boy's like picking a flower and picking a flower. And then it's like, oh, for his mom's grave because his mom is dead. Plot twist, it's sad. So I would take the pressure off with your comic. I know, I'm sorry, I picked up a sad one. Yeah, the key is to figure out how you're going to end it a third of the way through. So you figure out the ending before writing the middle, because then you got to figure out how to connect it. I know it got dark incredibly fast. Well, also that's the thing with comics is like in this small format too, you have the suspense of the page flip. So because you have, you know, a reveal, because of this format, you can use it to your advantage to like create suspense. And of course, if you don't feel inspired to do a short story about a character or something, it could be about you. A zine can also, because zine is just short for magazine. It could also be something that's more informative. Like maybe you are putting in there like describing how to do a recipe. Maybe you're just sharing a short story of just something random that happened to you. Or maybe it's you're illustrating song lyrics, or it's a poem, or it's a map. I mean, it can really be anything in this small little format. What I like about it is that you can then make photocopies of it, and then you just fold it up and boom, you've self-published. So then you can hide them around town or give them to your friends. So I guess we only have a couple minutes left. Yeah, if anybody does make their own comic zine, please, send copies along, because I have a graphic little mini comic library that I take for in-person visits. And you guys, I think in your kit put in there a little handout about folding your mini comics and just a little worksheet for figuring out the 6 things that happen. But also you could just like write them on Post-it notes, you know, to figure out, to plan your story, or a flow chart, or really anything. So yes, are there any more questions before we go? I love our characters. I'm going to drop this off at the library. And thank you so much for your input. And yeah, Tess, you like chimed in a lot there. So you're like, aren't a rock star.